Uganda's history is deeply shaped by the pursuit of peace, stability, and national unity. Tarehe Sita, commemorated on February 6th each year, serves as a pivotal moment to reflect on the UPDF's role in safeguarding these fundamental pillars of progress. It underscores the armed forces' commitment to national development, reinforcing the undeniable link between security and socioeconomic development. In today's discussion, we shall reflect on these pivotal pillars as catalysts for national development in Uganda. With me today to discuss this fundamental topic is an illustrious panel whom I shall introduce from my extreme left coming in. So at my extreme left is our, should I say, frontliner, Miss Nancy Carolina Yot. Nancy is a lawyer, a feminist, and a writer. Nancy, good afternoon and welcome again to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Good afternoon, viewers. I'm happy to be here.
We're very happy to have you, as usual.
As usual.
Next to her, in a rather smashing suit, is Miss Ankunda Tresilin. Tresilin is a lawyer and a human rights activist.
Thank you for having me, and I'm happy to join the conversation today.
Yes, we're extremely happy to have you. And then right next to me is Miss Bashira Nantongo. Miss Bashira Nantongo is a teacher. Good afternoon and welcome to the show, Bashira.
Thank you very much for having me here. My name once again is Bashira Nantongo, and I lecture at Islamic University in Uganda, and I'm also a political aspirant. It's a pleasure.
Yes, we're deeply delighted to have you here. So to kick off our discussion today, Tresilin, I'll start with you. In regards to Tarehe Sita itself, I would like you to contextualize it in Uganda's history, what it means to the UPDF and what it ought to mean to the average citizen. What exactly is Tarehe Sita?
Okay, so Tarehe Sita is an event that the UPDF put as a remembrance day for their role to play in pivotal contribution in society and community, and basically which around 1981 is when it started. So this year in Masaka on 6th February we celebrated the 44th year, or the 44th celebrations in that regard. And I think that to me the question of celebration should go beyond actually how the UPDF has related with the vast majority of the population that we have in Uganda. But also the NRM government has had one of its pillars as socioeconomic transformation. And previously it was pillar number 4, but of recent, I think last year, the president decided that socioeconomic transformation should actually come as number 1 rather than democracy that appeared as number 1. But again, if we are to talk about Tarehe Sita in the broader concept, is that what role entirely does UPDF play? And not just within Uganda, but also cross borders, because we have seen UPDF come through. If we are to talk about security, if we are to talk about empowerment, if we are to talk about growth and community empowerment, then I think it has tried to do something. But however, maybe there could be a few challenges that here and there we shall be discussing later. But largely to say is that UPDF celebrates this day. It celebrates its achievement both in Africa and both outside. And it looks at, for example, the ongoing Congo conflict that is around. We have seen Uganda send army, to come through, because if your neighbor is at war, then the war would likely come through for you if you do not actually go through to help them. And we've also seen this in earlier years under the AMSON, where it had to send some army to Somalia, and other areas where it has tried to, broadly engage in aspects of security. Because if we talk about socioeconomic transformation, security is a pillar to this. If there is no security, then we have challenges to address in that context. But largely that's what I could say. To give context to the Tarehe Sita, we have seen UPDF engage in agriculture. We have seen UPDF engage in tearing events. We have seen UPDF come up with things like having water companies, Uzima Water, and all this could be one of the few ways that UPDF is trying to say, look, yes, we are in the army, but what exactly are we giving back to communities? But also to appreciate everyone that has a member in the UPDF, because eventually their sacrifice is a sacrifice for us all. That is what I can say for now.
Thank you, Jocelyn. A follow-up question in that regard. We often hear, when we hear the president and actually anyone in the armed forces speak of the UPDF or, you know, our security forces, they speak of one concept, the concept of peace, right?
Yes.
And so it seems that peace is a relative term. It might mean one thing to one person and another to another person. I would like you to broadly expand on the concept of peace in regards to Uganda and the UPDF. And also in regards to the region, what exactly has the UPDF's contribution to peace been? What exactly does peace look like under the UPDF in Uganda and in the regional?
So the UPDF does not appear in a vacuum. One is that when we talk about UPDF, we are talking about how it relates with the civilians within the country. But also, as we head towards, or as we are in the terms of the East African integration, we are talking how has UPDF been able to fit in, both maybe in numbers, but also in significant contribution to ending maybe violence. But again, to talk about peace specifically, is that we have equally seen scenarios in this country on human rights violations. We have seen a context where some of the UPDF members have actually been used as a tool to disempower and also to largely to disempower especially young people or those who are powerless in terms of, you know, airing out their views. And you don't take away the fact that Uganda is a militarized country, that the UPDF largely, even when we have seen the ongoing cases in Supreme Court saying that, you know, now court martial is just a disciplinary committee, it is not even a tribunal, we still have challenges of who has power over what. And I think when you talk about peace largely, the questions of separation of powers, who has power over what? If the president is going to say this and the court is saying this and UPDF is saying now we have to listen to our president, then the whole question of the loopholes under separation of power or challenges that rule of law is facing is what we put into context. But to give credit where it's due, I think for the 44 years they have tried to do something, but however, there are still challenges and greater challenges, especially when it comes to human rights violation, that we have to attribute and actually find challenges or solutions to.
Okay, thank you so much, Jocelyn. Nancy, I will bring you into the conversation right now.
Sure.
Jocelyn has spoken quite largely about, you know, the UPDF and its status. I would now like to speak to you about its identity from the average citizen's perspective. We've spoken of 44 years. Each year we see they stand to commemorate their contribution to Uganda's development. What is the average citizen's perception, actually the identity of the UPDF in the national scale, in the regional scale, the international scale? What exactly is the UPDF from those multiple angles?
Thank you so much. So, given our history, I'll start up by saying that given the fact that we celebrated Tarehe Sita, we know that the UPDF started off as NRA, a rebel group within the country, and it was a group that overthrew a government, that overthrew a legitimate government by then. And after that, the NRA was legitimized through the constitution into National Defense Forces. And for me, I find it a little bit problematic because whereas we cannot deny that the revolution came in timely at that time, there were changes that were required, and it comes with the whole identity that the NRA came with, and with their 10-point program, really, that's the democracy coming first. If you just let me read them out, because I believe that this is what this is the general foundation of the UPDF, the promoting parliamentary and popular democracy, security of all people and their property, to eliminate state-instigated violence, consolidating national unity and eliminating sectarianism, because that was a big issue before. Everyone was like, the North has it, or Uganda has it, and the nation was at the verge of having genocides like the one in Rwanda. So at that moment when the revolution came in, it was timely. We needed something that united the country beyond tribal links and ethnicities, defending the independence of the country to secure economic prosperity, restoration and improvement of services, basic social services, health, and all that. But also eliminating corruption and misuse of power, resettling displaced people who had been displaced from their lands, because one of the NRA's biggest aches was the fact that the National Army then was sabotaging everyone. Land was being taken away by people in big government positions. Cooperation to defend human rights, but also to defend rights in other countries beyond borders, for African solidarity, and also economic strategy and mixed economy. That one I cannot expand so much on it really. But then it was legitimized into the Constitution. As a lawyer, I cannot fail to talk about that. And in our preamble of the Constitution, of course, they recall our history of turmoil and all these things, because we know where we're coming from. And then we say, we also commit to build a better future by establishing socio-economic and political order through popular and durable national constitution based on the principles of unity, peace, equality, democracy, freedom, social justice, and progress. Nice, right? Really good. And then also the national objectives, they guide all organs and agencies of the state in applying and interpreting the Constitution and any other laws. These objectives, they guide they guide us on how to interpret the laws of Uganda. But it also tasks everyone to work towards national unity and stability. I need us to understand that the UPDF is a big pillar in this, because they defend our territorial integrity, and any country that does not have an army is on shaky grounds, especially within our geopolitics of conflicts here and there, conflicts in South Sudan, conflicts in Kenya, conflicts in DR Congo, and you know the M23 sometimes come into our borders, and people of Western Uganda are particularly vulnerable to that. So let me just say that the UPDF carries out its territorial integrity, its duty of protecting the territorial integrity very well, but also in helping defend our states outside helping defend other African states outside borders. It does very well. However, now the conflict is the relation with people in the country. Now, I cannot confidently say that the ordinary Ugandan knows what the UPDF is doing in socio-economic transformation, and many of the things that Traceline is saying is for someone who deliberately seeks out information. It's for someone who deliberately seeks out information, or at least has access to that type of information. Otherwise, I know that people encounter the UPDF on the streets, you know, during election time. During election time, or perhaps during national disasters, which is their role, and they do it well when that happens. But for me, it is the lack of independence, because at this moment, it appears that the UPDF, which was supposed to be a state apparatus, not a personalized army of a particular individual, has turned exactly into that. And you know, in the context of the politics of this year and of the previous years, we've seen that every time they want to curb a certain type of dissenting opinion, the UPDF are sent out there. And we know it is extremely disconcerting, because when the NRA came into power, a lot of things were supposed to be set right, and one of the major things was protecting the human rights of people, but also people's personal property, but also eliminating state-instigated violence. I know for sure that when the NRA government took over power, one of the things that they did was expose the deeds of the previous governments. They went into the Luero Triangle and then they displayed the graves, the mass graves of people in the Luero Triangle by the UNLF then, the previous government. And they were like, this human rights abuse will never happen again. But right now, I do not think that anything has changed from what was 44 years ago. Because even the 10-point program that is guiding the country, or the institution that turned into our country's protective unit, is not working. Corruption is massive. State-instigated violence is happening. Human rights violations happen. And in terms of socioeconomic transformation, I feel like right now one of our biggest issues is that people are complaining of nepotism, because you cannot get anything unless you know a guy who knows a guy. Mm-hmm. Unless you know, and that's a real thing, and I'm not saying that it's only perpetuated by the UPDF or by the state apparatuses or by the government in itself or the executive in itself, but the fact that everyone is going back to divisive lines of my people, my village people, my towns people, my regions people, in order to share opportunity. But that also leaves a huge gap, especially in terms of protecting rights of women and access to resources. I need to say this because women are already largely disadvantaged. So when we are when we are getting our clans people and not pursuing the lines of meritocracy to make sure that the country develops, or to give people the opportunities they need to grow, it becomes an issue where women continuously lack, because people will always send in the male counterparts to the male members of the family to take over opportunity, while the females stay home to do unpaid labor. And for me, I say no wonder many businesses fail before their first birthdays. Mm-hmm. Because there is no real merit onto the success, because if you know someone, there are certain taxes you can avoid. If you know someone, there are certain steps that you can skip into establishing a formal lifeline. And so honestly, I think that the problems that they wanted, that the government, that the revolutionaries, to put simply, wanted to solve 44 years ago, are still happening. And it's worse because now, in the light of 2025, we have new challenges, like technology facilitated crimes. We have new challenges like climate change, and all of these end up affecting the average Ugandan who is relying on small agribusiness to survive. I think that beyond our boundaries, they contribute very little to the development of this nation, to the socioeconomic development of this nation.
Okay, that's a very interesting perspective to take on, especially with what Tracy Lynn has touched on. But you gave us a very interesting list, which I would like us to briefly run through in regards to the UPDF's roles, from sectarianism to run us through that list again. I would just like to see briefly how we have performed. From the very start.
Promoting parliamentary and popular democracy.
How are we working on that level? Just to highlight our performance.
Well, where we are, 2025, going into, this is the election year. We know that people are concerned about politics and money, or voter bribery. People are concerned about ballot stuffing and not getting their elected candidates into the House. People are concerned about the agenda of the National Assembly, because people believe that there is no consultative process onto the laws that are passed in the House. And most people like to say that whenever there is something that the executive wants, they call the NRM caucus and they call the NRM caucus, and then people come in and make laws that no one sent them to make. So I think on a scale of 1 to 10,
Yeah.
we're scrambling at 3.
3.
We have structures
Okay.
that are supposed to make things look legitimate, but I believe that these structures legitimize a lot of illegal things. As long as the executive wants it done,
It will be done.
it will be done.
That's very interesting. Bashira, as a politician or someone in the political space, someone who has history in the political space, how has the UPDF performed in regards to that particular aspect, the parliamentarian angle?
I was actually enjoying my sister's present, and I was really following every statement. I should say that regarding the aspect of celebrating, because I saw that they said they were celebrating people's contribution towards security, peace and what. I think it should be a reflection instead of a celebration. You cannot celebrate your degree every year. But we would want you to, if you've celebrated it this year, we want how have you progressed since you've had that degree? How have you contributed to the community? How is the community seeing you? How have you changed personally and professionally? I would say that it would be very sensible for the UPDF to say, or maybe next year as they celebrate their Tarehe Sita, to consider a topic regarding reflection, because then they will be able to identify their faults, their loopholes, and where more efforts should be needed. And additionally, I would love to credit them, because today you not only see men in uniform, you see professionals. UPDF is having professionals in education, it has professionals in engineering, they have the engineering brigade? Yeah. They have the professionals in health. They have a lot. Actually, they almost have every detailed profession under the UPDF. But then, I would say as a politician, there is no, I'm going to contradict with my sister here, Tracy Lynn. There is no leveled ground for politicians and the UPDF, because today we no longer see the UPDF, we see a partisan body. And my sister mentioned something in line to that. We see a partisan body whereby it's going to do the work of people that are in power, and maybe at the end of the day they're going to end up stepping on the toes of other people. And this is actually violating human rights, because when you come in 1981 saying that we are overthrowing a government that is not democratic, that is abusing people's rights, that is doing a lot of, irregularities, and then after having the mantle, you are doing actually similar things or even worse, because most of the times you see that we are conflicting with the UPDF today because they are still stuck in the 80s. Our government and the UPDF are still stuck in the 80s, whereby they still have that mirror of the challenges they came fighting for as the current problems here. We are having a young population of over 50% juveniles. And youth, I think they're around 20-something%. That is a very young population, and you cannot tell me that our problems are similar to the problems you fought for during the Obote's time. So I think there should be more consultations with the public, and the aspect of civic engagement, where you see them coming up, cleaning roads, coming up, doing some community work regarding health and what. They are mostly done. You see them, you may see them during Tarehe Sita. Do they do that regularly? Or they do that, or maybe that is the only avenue where they I think I need more lectures on that. I don't know whether, because I always see them come up when they are celebrating something, and if we are to come to terms with a common person, a person, my friend here talked about a person that does not seek knowledge, but is there to listen to whatever comes. These people should at least see them. They should familiarize with the UPDF and normalize saying that even a UPDF, you can find them and say hi. But the fact that they don't familiarize with them, they are still seeing them in an element of a tough institution, and yet they are actually transformed. So to me, regarding politics, there is a lot of work that has to be done, whereby we need to see an independent. I think that is a problem with Ugandan institutions, not just the UPDF. There is no independence in institutionalism. You see that UPDF does not make things independently as a body, and I think we should consider that and also draw boundaries as a state, regardless that maybe we are a militaristic state, as they say. We should draw boundaries. If we are the UPDF, what are our limitations towards the rights of people, civilians? And the recent, we can reflect on the recent situation of Dr. Kizza Besigye. He's a civilian. And Hajobed, I don't know even if Hajobed knows how to hold a gun. Maybe the other one is a veteran, but still being a veteran and you resign, you don't have a right to be tried in a court martial. So I think we should draw boundaries and limit that kind of fear that is living within us, because it is somehow affecting harmony. We would actually be on the same terms with our government or with our army and look at appreciation, but a mere stepping on our rights and maybe somehow bringing in that aspect of intimidation, we are always left behind. So on a scale of 1 to 2, let's now scale. We do some mathematics. I'll give them 2. Politically, yes. Wait, when politics come, you're going to see big cars that you've never even seen, and you're like, this is an election of, we are just...
Every time we're going for an election, it's like we're going for war, eh? Like the type of thing you see on TV, the big trunks with the machine guns on top. And for an ordinary Ugandan who has gone to town, for example, or you've just gone to your bank, you're just walking on the street to go to your bank, and the machinery that is mounted, you're scared, you're stressed out because there is tension. And the thing is, it's not like we believe that this is just formality or stuff like that. We've had, in 2021 elections, we had a time when the trucks would go out and there is a truck that would come in and all sound would be killed, like with like a piercing sound, it makes a piercing sound, and everything would be killed, and then the cameras are not working, and that is when the army would unleash terror on people in a rally. So these are not simple things, and it's not that they come in to stop violence in a crowd. Sometimes it's just a big rally of someone, and then that happens, and usually people warn you, there is an opposition crowd this way, please do not go if you want to be safe, because you cannot exercise your civic rights like that. You don't go out to listen to your candidate because you might not fare well. You end up with treason charges against you because you went to a rally.
I think additionally to that, there is a way the UPDF is being undermined, because I would think that the role of the UPDF, actually, these are the people that guard us, the country, they guard our integrity. And being involved in cheap things, communal things, there is someone political, there is a no people, and you see UPDF coming. I think it is undermining their integrity as an institution. They are stepping out of where they are supposed to be and coming to where actually maybe the police and the local government would actually be managing. So they should also revise, I think I mentioned that, but also I wanted to say that aspect of, you people, you did history. There is that time they said where the colonialists would pile up arms. I'm forgetting that term. They pile up arms and put them somewhere where everyone passes. So that whenever you want to strike and you see a gun, let me go back to my garden. So I think that is coming back in our government, and it is intimidating. It is undermining young people's brains. You see this lady here, for example, Tracy Lynn. She's a very young and brilliant girl. There are many others like her. They are trying to fit in the current government's manifestos. However much they would have independent minds, or they would have independent issues, you know, to talk about, and we would really enjoy them. Sometimes she would want to say something, but because she's maybe subscribing to the government, she'll be, let me swallow this. So it is really affecting us. We would really love that freedom regarding politics. Young people should be, you know, it's a new generation. We have different challenges and we have different opinions that we should have rights to. But the UPDF is stepping on our toes. We fear war, you know. Yeah, so I think that is what I would say.
I think that also plays into our education generally as a country in regards to the roles of our different mechanisms. People are confused about the roles of parliamentarians, thinking a parliamentarian should build a road. Now you'll have someone believe that the UPDF should be engaging in certain petty activities, simply because we haven't gone the extra miles from the onset to educate our people on the roles of all our different mechanisms. I think in regards to education, we should be looking in that regard.
That is intentional, by the way. It is intentional, deliberately, because even when you go to those people that would, because I contested as a member of parliament in the recent elections, but you would go there, people still think for any woman is standing for a woman's seat. There is no civic civic education where people just go to vote. They don't. That's why we even see, we register a lot of failed ballots. There is, I think it is intentional, in my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Tracy Lynn. We've been very quiet. I shall bring you into the conversation once more. When we speak of the UPDF's role in creating this kind of peace dividend, you know, as a result of their multiple efforts, some would say that it has been somewhat, the peace in this country has been distributed in an unequal manner, or in a manner that, you know, like I don't benefit from peace, you don't benefit from peace, or it looks different. I would want to ask, who has benefited the most from the peace that has been created by the UPDF, vis-a-vis who has been left behind?
So I think to begin with is that one thing we should always have at the back of our mind is that when we talk about UPDF, we are talking about power. And this I can juxtapose with all the other countries that we have, specifically maybe for Africa. Because UPDF is Uganda People's Defense Forces. But the reality, like I had earlier mentioned from the start, is that this is not always the case, and not only in Uganda. There are few countries that are trying. For example, if you're to look at the days of Thomas Sankara in Burkina Faso, you'd see how he tried to use the army to actually embrace and decolonize, but also frontline issues of progress within community and society. And to go back to even the current days, Captain Ibrahim, this one of, again, Burkina Faso, the captain that we have as a president, we still see him trying to use the army to contribute effectively to community and society. Army is in agriculture, army is in health sectors, army is in education, army is in all fields to ensure that you actually have a chronological response or approach to touching those real issues that communities face. But also, again, when you look at some of the continents or countries that we've been saying Uganda is not democratic or Kenya is not democratic, how about we borrow a leaf from the US? I think of recent I saw a scenario that actually did shock me, because as much as we have always alluded that these guys actually have the democracy, they can take it on from there and there, I saw a scenario where the Democrats were denied to enter the room because of political reasons, and this was done by police and army. And you know, these are people for so long whom we have said that, look, this actually is what the army should do. But progressively, as the global politics do play or have take shape, these challenges inwardly again come back to how organized or how prepared is Uganda and its army to liberate citizens from any kind of violence, from any kind of suffering that they could perhaps be going through. Again, when you, for example, go to like Chankwanzi, there's some of, okay, I would zero it down maybe to the UPDF prayer. The UPDF prayer is in context that do not eat at least for, okay, do not eat if you've not worked. Work for at least 4 hours before every meal. And if you don't work, then don't eat. That is something that actually captured my mind, and I was like, oh, so in short, it is saying, don't just sit and eat. Do something with your hands. And that something could be, are you maybe weaving baskets, or is it something, are you a teacher in the profession, or are you doing something to transform community? And today, what we see in the vast majority is that as long as a day passes, when we talk about peace, I think peace could mean different things to different people. If you go down to my village where I come from in Chabjimbi, in Bushenyi, someone will tell you, again with age, your great-grandmother will tell you, for me, Museveni brought peace, I have to support Museveni. Those are stories with age and intergenerational challenges that we face today. If you go to Kampala, someone will tell you, or in Mbara, someone will tell you, as long as I leave my home and come back evening safe, to me that's peace. But again, another person's peace could be, my mother is pregnant. If she goes to hospital and cannot have safe delivery, it is not peace. So the different kinds of peace is that people juxtapose or put position into small boxes of what peace should mean to them. But I think peace generally should be living in harmony. Peace should be accessing services. Peace should be being accommodative of one another. Peace should be how we can network and collaborate to ensure that things are viewed much better. Even when we keep maybe complaining, I think there is quite a lot that must be done, especially when we are to look at Africa as a continent. When you talk about Africa Agenda 2063, we're talking about peace. And again, peace goes back to the institutions that we have built. How strong are those institutions? Is it an exclusive institution, or is it an inclusive constitution? Or is it an exclusive institution? Inclusive that when you talk about UPDF, Northern Uganda will say, oh, we have the numbers. Eastern Uganda will tell you, oh, we have the numbers. Western will tell you, oh, we have the numbers. Central will tell you, oh, we have the numbers. And this in a way creates more of a spirit of Ubuntu, that oneness, it doesn't matter where you come from, it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter how you think maybe you are connected to this and this person. And again, if you're to look at the UPDF recruitment now, most of the people now taken are below 22 years. That's a very young population. Those are young people. And again, to the question of mindset, is that how transforming is it to them? Because you're taking young people who are at a large extent more of an open mind and willing to learn. But what has been told to you, they are, I don't differentiate, but there are a few individuals who are actually just bad individually, regardless of whether they belong to an umbrella or an umbrella. And we have seen UPDF also try to, hold them liable for some of those crimes. We have seen those that have been, given imprisonment. But again, is that enough? Is that what Uganda deserves? Is that what someone will say that, for me in Shema, I think this is actually peace. For me in Lamo, I think this is peace. But largely, maybe to wind this up, I would say that in as much as the UPDF is struggling with some challenges here and there is some at least small progress. There is some we can say some progress, because like you said, we have UPDF in academia, we have UPDF in the health sectors, we have UPDF in construction and other areas. And again, to me, the question individually should be, who is the UPDF? Who are these people? Did we hire them from somewhere outside, or do we know them? Are we related to them? Can I relate with Ayot's father if he's in the army? If individually you cannot relate with your father because they are in the army and you fear them themselves, then I think we have a big problem. It should again go back to the family settings, that in as much as maybe you are a father and this and that, we have had women actually join the struggle. We have women now represented in the UPDF. But are they coming through to say that, look, service delivery is a question here, that look, as UPDF, can we protect women in politics? Can we uphold their rights? Because to me, it would be so sad. Like, I saw a photo of 3 women that were peacefully demonstrating, being held by a fellow woman, pulling you this side and the other side. Again, have we embraced what actually should be done together as women and societies? That's what I can say.
Okay. Bashir, I'll bring the conversation back to you. Security is often presented as a prerequisite for development on a generalized level, but is there a level at which focus on security so much can actually lead to a deficit, or rather stifle development, due to excessive resource allocation towards it, or maybe creating an environment of fear or the like, because I recognize, even in our national budget, a significant portion of it has been allocated towards security. So is there a level at which security can actually, the balance between security and other development can actually be tipped in the negative?
I think before I attempt that question, I would love to say something. When I was reading about the different forms of leadership, I came across that aspect of character leadership, character-based leadership. And I drew my attention to our current leadership, and I knew that most of the aspects, by then I familiarized myself, or I came to peace with it, that most of the things we see today are because of that kind of leadership, the character of our leader. So our leader is a militaristic man who was once upon a time a rebel. And today he's a president and the commander-in-chief of the Uganda People's Defense Force. So I would expect that, or I wouldn't be shocked when a lot of money is allocated to that, because he knows the weight of security. Because he was one time insecure, because the UNLA was now looking for him, so he ran. So he knows, he knows how significant security is. And at one time, he was ambushed when, these petty attacks which the M23 gives us, and even our soldiers that are sometimes attacked in DRC, in Somalia. So I think, yes, there is a certain imbalance and there is revision that is supposed to be made. That is why, as a president, I would want to say that it would be appropriate for him to get reasonable consultants, not people just to come and listen to him, but people to actually listen, to people to trust. And I think that is a trust issue he could be having. Could be having a lot of trust issues, because when you get people you trust, they will give you, they will show you even the bad side. We have those hard friends. They will always tell you, trusted in that suit, you're not smart, and you will listen to them and take it off. So I think our president should familiarize with getting people he is secure about or confident or believes in, and they guide his decision making, other than just family or maybe people that would really, some people want to secure a bag. Some people are friends with us because of what we give them. So we need those friends that are going to have that national heart, that how do you call it, you people who went to Chanko? Patriotism. People who know the gravity, because we don't need just security. It's like one time I was having a conversation with a sheikh, and they were saying, today Muslim women, you are everywhere, and in Islam you are a princess, you're supposed to be in a house taken care of. And I'm like, sheikh, today if you be like that princess you're talking about, you'll die of hunger. You'll die in that room because you're trying to say, let me hide back. So today, if we don't, if our president doesn't consider that aspect of consultation, we are starving. We are talking about socioeconomic transformation, But are we just talking about the word socioeconomic transformation and not deeply reflecting in it? Because if we don't tackle the aspect of corruption, still, because there are money is allocated to every sector depending on how you can ask for it or budget for it. Today, the money is going to be stolen. Maybe the money in the security might not be stolen because the people there now they share the common vision. They know the gravity of the UPDF. The corruption is there or might be there, but it could be limited because of that sense of familiarity, that aspect that they do share similar goals. But what happens to these other institutions? So that is why we should say that there should be more allocation of money to the different sectors depending. I would suggest education. I would suggest health, of course, because these are key issues. If you don't have educated and healthy people, how are you going to talk about socioeconomic transformation? So basically, I should say it at that, but also it should be a question of how are we incorporating the biggest percentage of the population in this? Most of these decisions are taken by people. Okay, I will not say who are soon dying. I would say people that are
Departing?
not departing.
who are not going to live the realities of our economics in the next 30 years.
I love that. It's very polite. We are talking about a future of young people. Today, even now you saw the policy that is about to be tabled, that they eliminate nursery. But are we thinking about that we are eliminating nursery, we are eliminating P7? This could be actually good changes if at all we reflect on them properly. So I'm asking myself, for the policies that we are doing in regards to peace, in regards to health, in regards to education, how are we bringing in? Because it is supposed to be the biggest percentage of the nationals to benefit from it. We are the young people. We are the next generation. Okay, we are already in the generation.
Yeah.
But how are we harmonizing with this? So I think that is a question that we should reflect with our current government.
Thank you so much, Bashira. And to close us off for the afternoon, Nancy, a question for you in regards to, we've spoken quite frankly about the UPDF, the manner in which the UPDF acts, some of which is contrary to their mandate and to their level of reach. Talk to us about the accountability of the UPDF in regards to whether it is actually something that is present, what are the structures that are present for that to happen, but how are we, on a scale of 1 to 10, how are we progressing in regards to accountability?
Okay, I've been blindsided, but just to say, when we were talking about the UPDF overreach and their activities and their engagement with the citizenry, you have to understand that our constitution and articles 208 and 209, it's, you know, it talks about the characters and the things that they're supposed to do, engaging in social transformation, socioeconomic transformation, being non-partisan, national in character, professional, disciplined, productive, and subordinate to civilian authority. But let us understand that the civilian authority is the high command, the chief of the high command, the high command who formed this thing called the UPDF. He formed this thing, and I believe that a whole lot of what the UPDF does reflects what he reflects what he desires. Because not only once, twice, he has come out to defend their actions. He has said, I have sent in forces on the streets to stop these rogue people. So I believe that a lot of the things that they do are legitimized under the law. It doesn't, they may violate rights, that is true. But under the law, it's like there's some unconstitutional orders that they have that they carry out, and that makes it difficult to check them. Because even the people that are supposed to check them, for example, the judiciary, most recently, the Supreme Court, the highest court in this nation, said, let us stop these court martials, let's stop the trials, and and the High Command, and also the Chief of Defense Forces came in and said, we don't agree with this wrong decision, and we need to correct it. To correct it. And now it brings us back to Parliament, who they say should amend this law, but from my legal perspective, they don't have the mandate to amend the decision of a Supreme Court under Article 92 of the Constitution, because they say decisions of courts should not be litigated over again. I mean, should not be debated over in Parliament. Yes, Parliament cannot pass laws against court decisions like that. And I think what Raceline said earlier on is that the doctrine of separation of powers is in quagmire. Because we have these institutions that, the Constitution, nice book, tells us, this is how we are supposed to live our lives, but suddenly we are at a standstill, and for me it's a game of power. And the executive arm of the government has the full force of the UPDF behind them. And let us not lie to each other. No one, it's not easy for anyone to counter that. It is not easy, because the state in itself, not the executive really, my understanding of a democratic institution is that the state should monopolize the instruments of violence. And the state doesn't mean an individual. It doesn't mean the president. It means that institutions in a country ought to be independent enough to defend the country and to defend its principles when need be. Institutions like the UPDF, and our constitution says they should be subordinate to civilian authority, which means civilian authority should come in and check them. Like the constitution says, Parliament should regulate the UPDF. And there are regulations in place. And then we also have the judiciary to interpret some of these regulations, or to adjudicate any matters that arise out of these things. But if all the institutions are under some type of capture, I don't think there is any form of accountability that we can look forward to.
Thank you so much, Nancy. Thank you so much for closing us this afternoon with those very articulate thoughts, ladies. I'm very grateful to have had you this afternoon and to have deliberated over this very pertinent matter. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the close of yet another Tuesday afternoon show. Thank you for sticking with us until the very end. When we speak of the UPDF and essentially the security forces' contribution to peace, what we are speaking of is our stability as a country, our ability to get up every morning feeling safe, and our progress in regards to the socioeconomic realms. It is our duty as citizens to educate ourselves in regards to the roles of all these bodies, and to understand that there is a level at which we ought to hold them accountable, and to understand how we ought to hold them accountable. This has been a very interesting discussion. I look forward to having you again Tuesday afternoon next week to delve into yet another significant matter. Have a great day. My name is Tarehe Sita.